Welcome to Tenacity with Sonia C, the podcast where entrepreneurs, founders, and ambitious professionals come to learn from those who have walked the path, navigating challenges and achieving success. Whether it's thriving in business, pivoting, scaling for growth, fundraising, or finding work-life balance, dealing with loneliness, adversity, or overcoming personal struggles. Our guests share the insights and strategies that have empowered them to level up. I'm your host, Sonia, and let's get started. My guest today is Justin Wenzel. Justin is the co-founder of JWX Inc., a coaching marketing agency based in California. JWX Inc. isn't just a company, it's a community built on the bedrock of authenticity, integrity, and commitment to making a real difference. Featured in CEO Weekly, Justin has transformed his corporate success into entrepreneurial excellence, scaling businesses and empowering over 500 entrepreneurs along the way. Justin is also guiding me in building my personal brand, and today he's here to share his insights on creating impactful personal brands and how authenticity drives business successes. So buckle up as we learn from one of the best in the business. Justin, what's up?
How's it going? Good morning.
Good morning. It's Sunday morning. I'm excited.
Yes, this is great. A great way to start a Sunday. Yeah, I'm stoked to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome to Tenacity with Sonia C, the podcast where we talk about being tenacious in business.
Oh, I love that. That's
and
perfect.
and you're a perfect person to be on this because that's like your middle name, isn't it?
Yeah, Justin T. Wenzel. It's supposed to be Todd, but we're going to switch it for Tenacious today.
Yeah. So let's get into this episode. I just want to talk about, I want to talk about something that's going to drive the conversation into something else, which is, the way you and I met and where we are now about like the authenticity and how you reached out. I want to talk about that a little bit. So,
Okay.
how I met you was I saw one of your clips on Instagram, and you were on a podcast talking about your journey, and you said something that really sort of touched me and made me pay attention. You were talking about, you made a comment, your brother saved your life. It
Oh,
was that clip. And I started listening to it because it was something that I sort of like resonated with. And then I started following you, and you reached out to me and you're like, hey, thanks for connecting. Is there anything I can do? And we started like a whole conversation, and here we are now. I'm in your coaching program, but I want to talk about that, like, because there are people that are out there on social media, and they're just looking for a way to bring people in, and that you can see it when it's an ad and people are just being like trying to reach out, but you went about it like in such a unique way. I want to talk about that a little bit.
I love that. This is a great topic. Okay, so this goes back a little bit and just my
Mm-hmm.
philosophy with this. Um, it shouldn't be a surprise that social media platforms um are going to reward you for being social, right? And
Mm-hmm.
just connections with people in general like should be the way that they used to be. And so let's go back to I grew up selling cars. That was what I grew up doing, and I was always mentored by guys who were very experienced, but they had great reputations and they did it for a long time, and
Mm-hmm.
they stayed at the same store. Very uncommon in that industry. Most salespeople switch from store to store. They chase a carrot. Grass is always greener. Things like that. Um, the guys who mentored me taught me how to basically like be real with people, like treat people like people, not like a sale, and and connect with people so you could continue to get business and continue to, you know, get referrals and things like that. And it was not like brain surgery, right? It was just
Mm-hmm.
it's just that's just how you should treat people the right way and connect with people too. Like without connection, you really don't have much, and then you have a bunch of people that are loners and whatever. So I grew up in that industry, and I saw a lot of like a lot of douchebags that were just like you
Mm,
said, trying to bring people in, slick closers, stuff like that. And I never really thought that that was it just wasn't my style, right? Like I
mm-hmm.
didn't want to be a slick closer. I wanted to be a relationship builder. And that meant more to me than any of it. Um, Going back to the clip you saw of my brother, you know, we stick to the marketing strategy that, you know, offers tell, stories sell. And I think that there's a level of resilience and overcoming that so many of us have been through, especially
Mm-hmm.
since, you know, 2020 and everything that the whole world went through. And we'll get back to that here in just a second too. Um, that you know, we've been through some stuff that we can that somebody's out there that's going through it too. Your
Mm-hmm.
outcome or where you are now is somebody's dream life. And
Yeah.
so you have your story and you put that out there. And if you can be authentic, transparent, tell the truth, all of that good stuff, you're going to connect with people. And
Yeah.
ideally, if you've done the right inner work, things like that, you're going to connect with the right people. And then when it comes to how we operate, and we can dive in, we can have a whole nother conversation about this. Since 2020, a lot of people have gotten into the social media space and in marketing and in agency and digital products and educational products and things like that. Um, and there's a massive trust deficit, right?
Mm-hmm.
At
Yeah.
one point it was like, wow, all these people are making money online and things are going crazy. And then people started to catch wind of that. So they wanted to sell the ways to make the money and so on and so forth. And I was like, man, it's really misleading.
Yeah.
So instead it was like, let's be completely upfront from the gate, have the resources to give and treat people like people and actually try to find the right people that you want to work with, not just anybody and everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and that should turn out to be a good clientele. So it's kind of a long-winded way of explaining a lot at once, and there's
Mm-hmm.
obviously moving pieces to that story, but you know, it's part of what has created what we have today.
Yeah, and let's talk about that a little bit. How do you go from being a car salesman, which is not like the most loved career in the world, like nobody likes the car salesperson, which you went about differently. We can talk about that. But how do you went from that to starting your own agency and you know now you're teaching people how to build personal branding? Like how did that happen? That's a huge leap.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So being in the auto industry, like you said, nobody likes the car salesman, and that's true. No one likes a slimy car salesman, right? um the world has shifted a little bit in terms of transparency, but still, you're right. What people don't see is, yeah, nobody likes the car salesman, but nobody sees what goes on in the car salesman's life day in
Mm,
and day out, right? You're
yeah.
hunting, you are hunting every single day to eat, and
Wow.
a month can slip by, and you know, it's stressful. It's really stressful, and there's a lot of hours. Like if you're not at the showroom,
Mm-hmm.
then you're not making money. So you have to be there. And there's downtime. There's times when, you know what I mean? So like the stress, and your diet sucks and your sleep sucks. And then there's always that work hard, play hard element that goes along with that industry too. So for me, that industry, although I was born into it, it was all I ever knew. It became very unhealthy. So I had, you know, gained a lot of weight. I went through a divorce, went through a lot of struggles with addiction, things like that, and overcame it.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, my peers were continuously getting more miserable, fatter, drunker, right? Like that, and I was able to maintain getting super healthy. I lost over 100 pounds. Like I had a
Wow.
really big story of like everything that I went through. You know, got sober, uh, all of that to where it was like, okay, well, while my peers are all here, I'm over here. What did it take for me to get there? And obviously that started a lot of conversations with people that were also in that industry.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that whole story, that whole experience allowed me to connect with a lot of people, especially when I shared that journey. And I
Mm-hmm.
shared my entire weight loss journey and sobriety journey. and it really connected with a lot of people. A lot of them I knew at first, but it also resparked a lot of older relationships and things like that. And I thought, well, man, I really have something here. I had a really good understanding of health and fitness. I grew up in the gym. I was trained by a coach the majority of my life, played sports, all of that. I had a really good knowledge of nutrition because I worked with coaches, lost over 100 pounds, multiple, 2 or 3 times that I lost a large sum of weight. So I had a really good understanding of nutrition and things like that. And then I had some time sober, and I had worked a program to get sober, and I had learned a lot about sobriety along the way. So I was like, man, who could I help? And that
Mm,
answer was my old self. So I did what anybody should do, and that's I didn't know where to start with an online program. Meanwhile, I'm still running a showroom selling cars. I didn't really know like where to start, so I hired a guy to teach me, and I started investing into this idea of coaching people in the auto industry. That was it.
mm. Yeah.
And in the process of being very consistent with my social media, really bringing my energy, like I think I have a pretty big personality,
Yeah.
and it started to build an audience slowly at first, and then one post did pretty good, and the next one crushed, and before you know it, I started building a real audience, all while staying
Mm,
consistent, right? I
yeah.
missed more times than I hit, a lot more. um and so that allowed me to escape being in the auto industry. So what a
Mm,
great story, right? A guy
yeah.
who, so there's the story of the guy who overcame all odds and beat addiction and obesity and used that to help other people. And then what a story of the guy who was destined to be in the auto industry. Like, put it this way, my great grandparents were General Motors factory workers. My grandparents were General Motors factory workers. I was born and raised in Michigan. My dad was a car salesman turned car dealer. Like I learned how to walk, like physically learned how to walk in a Chevrolet showroom. I went to
Yeah.
college for automotive. I went, I went to all the post education programs to get everything in National American Dealers Association, right? Like that's all I
Yeah.
ever knew. So what a story of a guy who was able to take um his past, turn it into a something that could help people and save people's lives in a lot of cases, and then make a personal brand out of it. Have more people ask, well, how did you get out of the auto industry? How did you get out of your 9 to 5? Oh, well, I did this, and this. I paid for a lot of education. I built a team, and then it was like, okay, well, that's kind of a no-brainer situation. Why wouldn't I start also helping people market out their communities and their coaching programs and their educational programs? So, it
Hmm.
worked really organically, and that's where we are today.
Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and your business a little bit, because I think it's important for people to know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. So basically, JWX is a community of people with that same situation, right? Had a story to tell, wanted to use it to help other people in a lot of different fields, and we wanted to build a collaborative effort with coaches that were able to dump a ton of information, have open dialogue, open discussion on growing them,
Hmm.
all along the side of understanding the systems that you need to, in many cases, start a business, and in many cases, scale the business. And it's funny because the reason I say it that way is because some businesses have already started scaling and they've already started, building revenue, but they skipped a lot of the first steps that allow them to maintain that scale and
Mm,
continuously make more revenue. And then a lot of people are starting from scratch and they have no idea what they're doing. So it's almost like you have to take the coaches that have plateaued and their businesses have plateaued and almost go back to the basics so they have the right tools so they don't have that happen again, and they could most likely grow from there. And then you have
hmm.
people that are just getting started, that you're like, this is what I would do if I were to start all over, because I made all the mistakes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so basically we assist with the personal branding, the systems, and the advertising for educational programs, community platforms, coaching programs, you name it.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit about personal branding because, like, I've been in the tech space for over 20 years. I build startups, I build software. I know what I'm doing when it comes to that, right? And then my marketing team comes to me and they're like, Sonia, like, you need to build a personal brand, need to tell like the story. And I'm like, why? And they're like, because, there has to be like a face and people need to relate. It can't just be about like a product. And I have all this experience, and when it comes to like the personal branding, I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, I don't know what this is. I don't like, what do you want me to do? Where do I start? Like, and you're right, there's all these systems in place. So when I started looking into it, I'm like, there's no way in hell I can do this, right? And that's sort of like why I'm now part of your program. But like, why is that so important nowadays? And I hear more and more and more people talking about personal branding, and how far do you think it's going to go?
Wow. This is the best question of the day so far. So listen, to answer the first thing is resume, right? Your experience. And the truth is nowadays, nobody really cares about your resume. They want to know, not, they don't care about what you've done. They want to know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
We move in a very fast paced climate, right? So we need to be, um, showing that we're working, showing what we're
Mm.
doing. Arnold Schwarzenegger used to always say, uh, work like hell and advertise. And what he meant
Okay.
by that was, show what you're doing, constantly show what you're doing, put it out there. And that was something that he said years and years and years ago. Well, nobody has a bigger personal brand than Arnold Schwarzenegger. And even in
Mm.
the tech space, when you wonder like, oh, I've accomplished so much. Well, look at anybody that's massive in the tech space now. They all
Yeah.
have personal brands. And the people that have been very, very successful over the years, they don't need a personal brand. They have more money than anybody. But guess what? They're scrambling right now. They're like, man, I need to start doing stuff. I need to start
Yeah.
putting stuff out there because they recognize that nobody gives a fuck about what you've done. They care about what you're doing.
That's such a good point. Because is that part of is that part of like wanting authenticity from people? Like, yeah, you don't care about your resume. You're right. Is it because people want to relate and they want to see that there's a real person there? Because we're so used to seeing people on plateaus, right? Like look at some of the big personalities out there. You pay to go to a conference to see them, but you never get to have real conversations with them. So is that personal branding taking you outside of that, seeing them on the stage and making it seem like you have like a relationship with them almost because they're sharing like little bits of what their actual life is like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, day in the life content has been popular since the beginning of personal branding as it is today,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it will always be that way. It's funny
Yeah.
because I've even taken a shift in some of my content pillars to show more day in the life. And instantly the feedback is more of this, more of this,
Oh,
more of this,
wow.
right? And it's like it was like within minutes of posting certain day in the life stuff is what my DMs are getting filled with. So yeah, I think taking people into like what you're doing is entertaining for one, right? And it does humanize people, that's for
Yeah.
sure. One point that I would make to that too is like, and I forget who wrote about this recently, and it might have been Chris Collins. I'm not sure. That was actually the podcast that you saw me on. First was
Okay.
Chris Collins' podcast. He's the author. Um, but I think it was him that basically said like business to business is dead now. It would be business to CEO, right? Like you can,
Mm,
because of personal branding, because of what we have, we're so easily accessible nowadays, that things happen faster. Deals are made faster, than
yeah.
ever before because it's a direct line, right? You
Yeah.
can get a hold of me, right? I can get a hold of
Yeah.
you. And so that's where a lot of that importance comes into. But at the end of the day in the life just shows like, this guy's doing it actively,
Mm-hmm.
and can I get a hold of him? Well, clearly I can. He's on his phone right now showing us his day in the life.
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing, right? And it goes back to the initial conversation we started out with when you reached out to me. Like you're busy, you're running a company, you have people that you work with, partner, you have your partner, and you're creating all of this content, yet you make time for people. Like if I send you a text message, you'll answer me, right?
Yeah.
So how do you manage all of that? That's hard.
The busiest people are the easiest to get a hold of.
Really?
It's a fact. Yeah. Yeah.
Why is
Uh,
that?
well, it's funny because you're in Canada. Your guys' new prime minister, Drake. Um, they say that when somebody text messages Drake, he answers right away.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
How the hell does he do it? Look,
Mm-hmm.
if the thing that a lot of like like successful and I'm not even saying that I'm even hyper successful, but like a lot of people with this mindset is like do it now mindset, like just get it done.
Mm.
So it's funny because like no matter how busy I am, I can always respond to a text message. There's like never a time where my life is so busy that I can't read a text message, understand it, and then respond to it right away. Like get it done. If that means, and on top of that too, keep in mind you have video notes, voice notes. You have so many ways that you can get things done instantly. And if you know what you're doing, you can give that direction right away and get it
Mm-hmm.
handled. The problem is if you look at a lot of people's phones, and I'm going to throw my wife under the bus, that you see so many lost notifications or so many unread notifications and things like that. It's like, and then if you went through the notifications and look at it and ask yourself, could I have just like answered that and had it done right away? So
Yeah.
that do it now mindset is the way that, you have to be to keep up with the amount of communication that's going on. Yeah, I field a shitload of DM. When I wake up in the morning, my DMs and my text messages are just loaded up. And that's from like the hours of like 9 to 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
But if I wake up, I take 10 minutes to go through each one. The ones that I need more time to respond to, I'd leave them or unread, and then I circle back to them. And then you just
Mm.
have and then you just get it done right away. I don't really know. And then the last thing I'll say is if you're an entrepreneur and you're building a team and you're um and you have the right systems in play and you have the right people on your team, there should never be a time that you can't respond to a message or get on a call or do things. If you're that busy, then you're doing it completely wrong.
So why are people that busy?
In my opinion,
Yeah.
they're greedy.
One of my things, I know I've had this conversation with you. It's like, okay, I know I got to do this. It's important, but I'm not comfortable. And I feel like I have all this other stuff going on. And now it's like, now I got to like create videos and people are going to judge me and people are going to make comments. And I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I don't know if I can handle it. And I know you gave me some advice and I want you to give me that advice again because I want everyone to get that advice. Um, for those people that are listening and they're like, they know they have to do it, but they're scared to do it. What's your advice?
So Allaxophobia is the fear of people's opinions, and that's the most
Mm,
common fear above being burned alive, drowning, whatever. Even talking in front of audiences, Allaxophobia is the root cause of that even. And at the end of the day, first and foremost, as you're building your personal brand, no one's going to see you, right? Like
mm,
it's not like there's this massive audience of people that are going to see you. The ones that do, if they have a negative reaction, they're not going to spend their money with you anyways. So they'll move on.
mm. Yeah,
And then the third one is that as you continuously do it, you're going to get better, right? So most people
right.
are so afraid of the opinions of others that they won't even try, and they'll end up in the same exact place wondering what would have happened if they tried. And
Mm,
even if they do start to build an audience, but they half-ass it, the minute they bring the energy, that's actually when the real hate comes in, right? So you might as well be at an 11 from the gate, build your audience with the people who actually care to see you, because that's what really matters.
mm-hmm.
The uninterested eyeballs and confused people, right? Like that's not going to go anywhere. So be yourself and really like stay consistent with it, because you're going to get better. And ideally, and what happens in most cases is that you get progressively better as your audience builds. So
Yeah.
new eyeballs see you and it looks like you've been doing it for years.
Yeah, and one thing I discovered too with your team was that there are so many tools out there to help you through that process,
Hmm.
that I didn't even realize. And I always sort of in my head thought that it was going to be a lot harder. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm still like in the starting stages of going through that. But as I'm going through and figuring it out, I've realized like there's all these tools in place, especially now with AI, that can help you. So there's really like no reason not to do it. It's really just fear.
It's always fear.
Yeah.
It's
And
always
so what's your advice for people like me that are like, I think fear for me also comes from my upbringing. So I've always like growing up, I always I was in this constant state of fear just because like my dad was an alcoholic. And so as a child, like I grew up in this environment of just always behaving, looking my best, like being in this environment where I didn't want to piss anybody off, because if we did, we don't know what that would bring up. So like I grew up in this environment of just being fearful all the time. So it's so hard for me to just come out of my comfort zone and be like, I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to take a risk, because in my mind, it's like, am I going to like stir the pot? And I don't know why I
Mhm.
think that, right? It's just ingrained in me and it's really hard to get it out.
Yeah, so like an uncertain reaction would make you walk on eggshells, right?
Yeah.
But that's why we do personal development work, right? Like
Yeah.
that's why we leave the toxic situations that we're in and actually, you know, turn the page on that or even close the book on it in general, right? So um that fear, and especially like what you're saying, like walking on eggshells, not wanting to piss anybody off, that doesn't pay the bills and it
Yeah.
doesn't get you to where you want to go. But I totally understand that it stays with you because you've been conditioned to in fight or flight, or in, you know, being concerned about pushback or reactions and things like that, so it causes you to stay quiet. And
Mm-hmm.
that's normal, right? But then what's the point of doing all of the personal work and staying consistent, you know, working on your mind, your body, you know, getting an adequate amount of sleep, you know, hydrating, reading, learning, all of that. Like you put that type of work in on yourself and it only is going to build the one thing that makes you that helps you do this: confidence,
Mm-hmm.
right? Confidence
Yeah.
is built off of repetition. So I would tell you that's the biggest thing, is like when you do the inward work, you can start to feel more confident with explaining this to other people, right?
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing. And it seems so simple, but for most people it's just impossible for them to understand that, you know, do the work inward, right? And watch how it
Yeah.
starts to attract outward.
Yeah. And you just made a comment and it triggered me, because I'm like, man, that's my biggest problem. And I think it's a lot of people's problems. Like the consistency. I start something today and I'm like, I'm gonna do it. And I live on schedules. Like I'm a schedule girl. Like my calendar is like my life. I look at it first thing when I get up in the morning, and before I go to bed, I look at it to see what my next day is gonna be like. I live by that. But like I start something and I'm like, I have to be consistent. Like this has gotta happen. But then something comes up and something falls through the cracks, and now I'm not being consistent, and then all of a sudden I'm not doing it at all. What's your advice for sticking to something and being consistent with it? Because if you're not, then everything that you've done is going to fall through the cracks and you're going to lose all that momentum, right?
Yeah, definitely. First thing is pick a project, right? Like
Mm,
if you have to like break it into like micro projects, break it into that. And then, you know, on especially if you're like, let's just say for example, we're building a website, right? Um that, you know how it is, like when you step away, when you sit down, you have your cup of coffee and you start going,
Mm-hmm.
you get it done quick. If you just sat down and you did it, it's like, wow, that was nothing. But if you sit down and you start it and then you go and you start another project and then it's like, oh my God, now I got 3 projects going on and whatever. So pick one thing, right? Pick one thing. And if it's creating content, okay, then pick that one thing. The next thing is find your evergreen content. Okay.
Mm,
And that's going to be super important because that's going to be content that obviously works with your audience, but the most important part is that's the content that you enjoy making,
yeah.
right? So if you struggle staying consistent with content but you really enjoy podcasting, then make your content podcast content.
That's actually a really good point. I really enjoy
Yeah.
podcasting. I like
Yeah.
that advice.
But if you hate going in front of camera and like remembering a script, like, and nobody I think really likes doing that until you have a process. So again, sit down, pick like one type of content that you want to master. Of course, the other things are really easy,
Mm,
doing carousels with Canva, things like that are easy. That's just drag and drop. You can AI the verbiage, drag and drop it
mm-hmm.
over, and it's good, or copy paste it over. But
Yeah.
in terms of like staying consistent with content and just like anything, it's like add it to your routine more so than like your calendar. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I wake up, I sit down, I script for a minute, and you and I both know the way we have our stuff set up. Scripting takes 20 minutes. You can get like 10 pieces of content. It's really not hard.
Mm-hmm.
But just a matter of just doing it. And again, like I said, do it now. Like if we know
Yeah.
scripting takes 20 minutes, we have 20 minutes. We can just sit down, get it handled, and go on. But that's the one thing. The mindset, the brutal truth, is most people can't stay consistent because they don't want it bad enough,
Mm,
or because the result of being consistent, uh it's not you don't you're it doesn't there's not enough pain, right? There's just not
mm,
enough pain to make you want that result bad enough. And so sometimes, like,
mm.
I can tell you, like, the thing most people struggle with consistency is weight loss, right? And I mean, most people, like the
Yeah.
vast majority of people struggle with weight loss. Um, but the thing is they're seeing all these things like, oh, you got to go in, you got to lift weights, you got to do cardio and sauna and cold plunge, and then you got to track your macros and all this stuff. And it's like, holy shit, how am I ever gonna
It's
just?
a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. So pick one thing to start off with. That means just go to the gym and park in the parking lot and sit in your car, then start doing that, right?
Yeah, I guess that's a good
You know,
point.
then walk in, go stand on the treadmill on the sides and watch the track go between your legs, and then maybe step down on. I mean, again, it could be as simple as taking it step by step, but just
Yeah.
slice it up. Just slice it up.
Yeah. I like that because sometimes it can be really overwhelming. Like you said, like losing weight is a great example. It can be really overwhelming and stressful because it's like you can't just do this one thing. You feel like you gotta do all this stuff, right? And then it just becomes
Mhm.
too much and then you can't be consistent. So what about procrastination? Like I find myself like I had time to do this ahead of time, but I left it until the last minute. And I work with a lot of founders that they have like full-time jobs and they're trying to build like tech companies on the side, or they're doing it full time. But the procrastination is something that I find is very consistent, especially with entrepreneurs. Why is that? And how can you overcome it?
Um, well, I don't know if my techniques work for everybody, right?
But share your techniques.
My techniques is I tell myself, don't be a bitch and just get it handled. And I'm not, that's actually funny because that's not even how I really coach, but that's sometimes how I have to coach myself into
Mm-hmm.
not procrastinating. Um, I think procrastination when it comes to, like, building a business and doing these projects that we're talking about, it's maybe something that's not as exciting. Maybe you're just not energized to do that type of thing. I think finding out the triggers of what's making us procrastinate is a good idea. And
Mm,
again, too, if you're a CEO, you know, at first you might have to do some $10 tasks, but the goal is to not have to do the $10 tasks. So
Yeah.
if you have a bunch of like meaningless tasks that you have to do, like that stuff starts to build up. And then the big tasks that you actually enjoy and that actually grow your business or whatever you're trying to accomplish, um, you know, you don't get to that stuff, right? Or you're burned out by the time you do. So if you
Yeah.
can delegate the small tasks that you normally would procrastinate on, life's going to be a lot better. That's for sure. But otherwise,
Yeah.
yeah, I honestly have to tell myself like just go do it. Like stop being a bitch. And
Mm.
it sounds so simple, but like literally, it's usually procrastination is just it's insecurity, really. So
Mm.
and fear, you
So
know.
before we run out of time, I want to ask you a couple more questions, but I really want to talk about your team because I have just in my interactions, I think there's something unique going on there, and I want to talk about that a little bit because, like, it's hard to manage people. I think that's the one part of my job that I really dislike. I'm like, if I didn't have to manage people, I'd be killing it. But
Mhm.
I found with your team, like everyone I talk to, and when we have like the group meetings, everyone loves their job. And maybe I don't know, but like everyone is just so happy and everyone is so engaged and they're like, "Yes, let's do this." And we're here and they're present and they text message you and they're available. How do you do that?
So that's the biggest difference is that you said managing people, right?
Mm, okay.
I say leading a team,
Okay.
right? Managing people and leading a team are two completely different things. The world is full of managers.
Mm-hmm.
Leaders are few and far between, right?
I
And so
love that.
a leader is going to, and again, I'll sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth with this when I say, you know, the $10 tasks and all of that, but a leader is the one who's going to probably end up doing the most work out of everybody. And that shows, and then that example obviously goes to the rest of your team. But none of that matters at all if you're not very selective with who's on your team, right?
Mm,
Have you read Good to Great by Jim Collins?
no.
Okay, so he talks about the flywheel and he talks about the like who's on your bus. And in some cases, and I've had to while I built my team, in some cases, um, having to limp without the right person on your bus, right, is
Yeah.
better off than getting by with the wrong person on your bus. So for us,
Yeah.
like it's been a matter of selection. It's been a matter of like watching these people grow in the community before we even invite them into leadership. You know, everybody that is in our leaders on our leadership team and manages my business from my VP to my COO, my CFO, my digital marketing director, all of them started as clients of mine.
Mm.
And my CFO started as a fitness client of mine.
Oh, wow.
I pulled him out of a bar. He was miserable, depressed, fat, drunk, everything. The day I met him was on a Halloween years back. And he just came up to me and he was like, dude, you're not drinking. And you could see like he just had this insecurity in his eyes.
Mm.
And he was like, dude, you know, you're jacked, you're not drinking, you got all your friends here. He's like, I want that confidence, right? And he kind of expressed that he was going through some loneliness and things like that. So the next day, that Monday, Halloween was on a Sunday that year. The next day was a Monday. He signed up for my fitness program and got in the best shape of his life. That was also the last day that he ever had a drink of alcohol. Okay. Got in the best shape of his life. I started needed some help as I was building JWX. He started setting appointments, right? So we changed his life completely from a mindset and fitness standpoint. Okay. And then he came in, he was setting, he had made a little bit of money from a house that he had sold. So he was kind of living on the beach in Huntington in a little apartment, kind of just, you know,
Mm-hmm.
getting by, doing his thing. Started setting for me, proved to be an amazing asset to the company. So I started to teach him how to do some accounting stuff and some CFO stuff. Prior to this, he was a machine operator. Okay.
Okay.
As he started to really prove himself with that, took hold, learned CRM systems, learned automation, learned how to balance the books, learned how to run my P&Ls, learned how to do all of this stuff. And I started to obviously compensate him significantly more and more and more and more. while he's finding purpose in that and he was also building out his own coaching program. Because by the way, you have to have your own coaching program to work for me and have it be a successful coaching
Mm.
program. Okay. And I have to have had assistance in building it. Okay. So everybody does have that. Okay. Um, he goes out with us for a 4th of July and he meets who's now his wife. The two of them, now he's become very successful. Get a badass condo on the beach here with his new wife or fiance at the time, right? All of that stuff, right? And now
Yeah.
he just purchased a big ass home up in Northern California with his new wife, right? The reason that these guys all love their jobs is that we've been able to create something so
Mm.
personally and so professionally for ourselves that it's like, this is what it should be, right? And it
Yeah.
was sacrifice from my end. It was a ton of risk and liability from my end. And every single day I wake up at 3 a.m. and those guys may be sleeping still, and that's fine. But every day I'm getting the day set up still. Every day I'm reaching out to each one of those guys. Every day we're meeting for the most part, even if it's just via text, we're getting stuff handled and we all treat it like a brotherhood now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that always work? No. But in this case, we've been able to all, and again, look at Scotty's situation. Scotty owned a construction company. He was miserable, hated it.
Yeah.
I introduced him to online coaching. He dissolved his construction company. Now he works from home. He's with his kids all the time. He's got a 4-year-old son that's with him at all times. Like his life has completely changed. So
Yeah.
I think if you're a good leader, then you lead people and you change their lives. If you're a good manager, you delegate and you watch over to make sure shit doesn't go wrong.
I love the story of like the people that are on your team, but that's such a fantastic story. I wish like more people could hear it and really see the difference between managing and leading because there's a huge difference. You're right. But like, wow, that's a fantastic story. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty proud
And you
moment.
know what? You can see it. I know a lot of the listeners are not in your program, they should be, but like I see it when I go into the meetings. Like you see that the team is like they're present, they're happy, there's an energy that comes
Hmm.
out of being there, but it also trickles into your community, right? Because the last time we were on a call, you were talking about something and someone had given a suggestion on something, and you were like, oh yeah, I was talking to this person and they suggested this tool, and here, and you exposed it to everybody so that everyone could take advantage of it and learn about it. And I find that that's what you do a lot in the community. Like you have a success case with someone and you share it with everybody, and it's like, we did this and this worked out, and then it's like, well, you try it because here we did it with this person and it worked, and here let him explain it to you. Like it also, everything that you're doing like with your team, it also goes into the community, and I think that's unique.
Yeah, it's funny because I have been in a lot of different programs and stuff like that before, and it felt like everything was either an upsell, right? or like people were holding stuff like at their hip. And I think that's stupid. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
the whole concept is abundance, right?
Yeah.
If we're trying to live abundantly, then abundantly goes outward as much as it comes inward. And so if we have something that works, why would we not share it with everybody to give them an opportunity to experience the same exact thing? And if it works for them, that's great. And I always leave the disclaimer that because it worked for this person does not mean that it will work for you, but here's what we did and here are the suggestions and then also too, one other thing that you have to follow that up with is, yes, give the tools, right, but you have to guide. And
Mm-hmm.
because handing somebody a tool that's never used it before is kind of pointless, right? They could
Yeah.
figure it out for themselves, but if you already know, then why the hell wouldn't you just share with them what to do or give them proper feedback on what they should do differently? A lot of
Yeah.
times people get so caught up on learning the tool that they forget to bring the energy. And so you need a second set of eyeballs on that stuff to see like, okay, I Tighten up your setting, right? Give it some camera movement. Your copy should be written this way, right? We're going to target it this way because the visual tells a different story, or tells the same
Mm-hmm.
story as the target. We got to know these things. And if you're just going at it, trying to figure it out yourself, well, first of all, that could be costly,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And secondly, why would you waste time, right? Success loves speed.
Yeah. But the thing is too that I found that it wasn't cookie cutter what you were doing, right? It wasn't this is what we do and this is what we teach everybody. It was a real world scenario where it was like, oh, we did this thing. This is how you do it, but you actually sat down with this person and you guided them through the process and you did some testing with different scenarios, right? Like, so you didn't just give them like a cookie cutter solution and be like, here, go out and do this, this is going to work for you, right? You were like, no, 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 like, let's test it out. And the person was on the call and he was also saying, yeah, I tried this and I didn't like that, and we tried this. And like, I love that approach, again, because like I think we're so used to that cookie cutter, and then of course the upselling. But like, here you are doing something that's number one transparent, but it's also very authentic, and it's like it's you're just sharing everything that you've learned with this whole community. That's unique.
Have you ever seen American Idol?
Yeah.
During the auditions, like the first like couple episodes, when someone gets on stage and it's like, who let that person on stage?
Yeah.
Right? And then their family is there with signs and all of this, and they go out in front of Simon Cowell and all those guys, Howie Mandel, or that might be America's Got Talent. But either
The
way,
judges, yeah,
the
yeah.
judges, and they're like, no, no way. Like, why would we ever pick you? But the family's outside, like, yeah, we love it. You're great. And you're like, why would their family do that to them? Right. So a lot of times when people are doing creatives and visuals and things like that, and they send it to me, like, I'm not going to be that family sitting out there saying like, oh yeah, run it, do that. It's great. I support you. No, I'm going to say, look, it sucks. Let's figure out a way to do it better.
I
And
love
it,
that.
but if I didn't give a shit, then I would say, yeah, it's great, just go do it. But if I care, then I'm going to tell you it sucks. And the reason I'm going to
Yeah.
say it so brutally is so you remember,
Yeah.
right? So you
Yeah.
remember, like, whoa, the next time you go to film with a stationary camera, standing like bust up, like kind of waddling around in the camera, like I'm going to tell you, like, why would you do that? Why would anybody do that? No one's going to want
Mm-hmm.
to see that. And then you'll remember next time that you set up your tripod waddling in the camera, it
Yeah.
sucks. It sucks. So and
Yeah.
then offer suggestion, and then again. And the other thing to consider is, right, like, if you really believe in social proof and you really believe in growing your business, then understand that your client's success equals your success,
Yeah. That's true.
even if it takes a
But
little more time out of your day.
yeah, but I feel like sometimes too, like that's what, like when you think about like a coach and that mentality, when I talk to a lot of people, it's like, yeah, my coach is just going to agree with everything that I say. Like they're not going to slap me across the face, right?
Mhm.
So your approach is you're not slapping them across the face, well, a little bit, but they need it, and that's the
Yeah.
reason why they want coaching, right? Because they know they're not great at something and they need somebody to either hold them accountable. I remember you and I had a conversation. You were like, what do you need from me, Sonia? I'm like, I really need somebody to hold me accountable so I can get shit done. Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's what people really need and want versus just having like someone lead cheerlead and be like, this is great, but maybe try this. That's sort of in my mind. That's what I expect from a coach.
Yeah. That's not a coach. That's
Yeah.
not a coach, and that's like, and again, like you look at like what's the greatest dynasty, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, right?
Mm,
Like, do you think that everything Tom Brady did, Bill Belichick was like, oh, you're Tom Brady and everything's great and everything you do is great?
yeah.
Like, and you're talking about somebody who pretty much everything they do is great except their marriage,
Yeah.
right? And then you have Bill Belichick, who's a great coach, right? But guess what? They don't even talk anymore, right? Like they had such feuds and stuff like that, but that was while building a dynasty. There was
Mm-hmm.
honesty. There were numbers involved. There were facts, KPIs. Like literally everything was all laid out. There wasn't this feeling or this like, yeah, that was great. Keep trying. No, that sucked. Fix it.
Yeah.
Now how I gauge like how hard I feel like I can slap somebody is basically how bad they need it and how much they can take. Right. Cause I don't
Mm.
want to break somebody.
Yeah.
Right. But like you've probably heard me, come unglued on a couple coaches on calls that I know because I've been working with them for years that I know that it's like if I don't publicly embarrass this cat, he's never going to learn. And he knows that, and him and I have that understanding. I don't like,
Mm-hmm.
we'll be on a call and there'll be 70 to 100 screens. I don't know everybody at that level. I try to, but again, it's kind of, how who invest their time back into me, right? That I get to know them
Yeah.
at that level. So yeah, gauge it on how bad they need it and how much they can take. But at the end of the day, I'm always just going to tell people straight up, and you have to, you
Yeah.
know, even if that means I lose a client in the long run out of it. Like, sorry, like I don't want piss poor results.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you really do push. You push and but you see the success from that, right? People
Mhm.
are in the community and they're there because they're like this is exactly what I need, right? And then they start seeing results from that, right? And then it's like, "Oh, this works. Like this is exactly what I want."
Yeah, 100%. Programs always work if you work them.
Yeah. Well, Justin, we're coming up on time. This was such a lovely conversation. I
Thank
love
you so
chatting
much
with
for having me.
you. Before we go, I just want to touch one last point. Well, I want you to
Okay.
just like talk about it a little bit. You've brought this up a couple times in this conversation where you were like, you were in the automotive industry. You sort of like that was the expectation for your life, and then you discovered something else that you were really passionate about, and I think it came from like your own need. Can you just for an audience that either are aspiring to be entrepreneurs, need to realize that they need coaches so they can get shit done? What was it about like people talk about this all the time. Like you got to do some things that you're passionate about, which I get. The results are going to be there if you're passionate about something. But like, what drove you to be like, I'm going to change a successful career, and I have this new passion because I went through this experience and turn it into a massively successful company. Can you just share a little bit about that experience before
Yeah.
we wrap up?
Well, yeah. So, you paint the picture of success in my prior life, in terms of like notoriety and income. But at the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, I didn't feel that getting sober, getting in the best shape of my life, and getting mentally the most fit that I've ever been. I didn't get do those three things to do the same thing that I've always done.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that there was more made me miserable. And I think anybody that knows that there's more for their life and they're not doing that more, they're not content. But the problem is it's how painful is it?
Mm.
Because change occurs when the pain of change outweighs the pain of staying the same.
Wow.
So for
Yeah.
me, it was, I can remember the day that I said, I'm going all in on this. And I remember a guy that I worked with who used to always carry a Mont Blanc pen. Okay. And I was sitting at my desk in the showroom that I was working in, and I was holding on to my Mont Blanc pen just like he did. And I used to always remember him saying, he was so cynical. And he used to always say, I always pack light. He said, I always pack light. And he would pull up his Mont Blanc pen and he would go, because if I make the decision or if I get cut, this is all I got to take. I don't own any of this. And I remember sitting in that office going, um, I don't own any of this. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
pick this chair out. I didn't pick this keyboard out. I didn't pick this computer screen out. Like the artwork on the walls, none of it is. And I remember thinking about, his name was Daryl, thinking about that one thing. And it was enough for me to say, the pain of change has outweighed the pain of staying the same. And I walked
Yeah.
away that day. And it was literally, I had no plan of actually like leaving
Wow.
that. It was literally that moment right there. And it was like the pain of change outweighs the pain of staying the same. Because if I don't do this right now, then I'm going to be here 10 years from now. And I'll probably make a lot more money and I'll probably whatever, but I just won't be happy. So I walked away and that's it.
And you wouldn't feel fulfilled like you do now.
Correct.
Love it. Well, Justin, thank you so much. This was so lovely. Thank you for agreeing to come on and
Oh, I'm
being
happy to do it.
authentic and sharing your journey. I think it also goes to personal branding, just hearing people out and hearing their stories and where they come from and how they got to where they are or while if they're still in that journey. I think that's just like stories that people need to hear about. And thank you so much for being open to sharing it. I love it.
Absolutely. This was a great time. Thank you so much for hosting.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Justin. I really appreciate your time. It's been enlightening to hear about your journey and the powerful impact of genuine mentorship and branding in the entrepreneurial world. If you're inspired to take your personal branding to the next level or want to embrace authenticity in your business practices, today's episode is your call to action. Remember, building a brand is about making honest connections and staying true to your values, just as Justin has shown us. And that's a wrap. To our listeners, thank you for joining me on this journey of learning, growth, and inspiration. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform and connect with our community on social media. I'd love to hear your feedback, so leave a review and let me know what topics you'd want to explore in future episodes. Remember, the future belongs to those who embrace challenges, adapt with tenacity, and keep pushing forward. Keep growing, keep pivoting, and most importantly, stay tenacious in your pursuits. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to bringing you more insightful conversations in our upcoming episodes. This is Sonia signing off, but as always, keep chasing your dreams with tenacity.